Your next author is known through most of the world as world-renowned gentleman cat burglar Marcel Guimont. In his breakout memoir, he shared his humble beginnings as a son of a boat trailer salesman who was shaped by the gritty streets of Tampa, Florida. Here to read from his new book, Tamp's Heat, A Christmas Memoir, Marcel Guimont, A.K.A. Toby Mofit.
The book is called Tampa Heat, not Tamp Seat. Good evening. Many of you probably know me as Marcel Guimont. My friends, however, have come to re-know me again as Toby Mofit of Tampa, Florida. My agent said that if I was going to keep releasing memoirs, perhaps I should do a Christmas one. And I tried to remind him that I wasn't some soft rock has-been who housewives masturbate to in the bathtub. I can't just change genres for a marketing gimmick. Then he suggested that I write about the time that I stole Christmas from Santa Claus. And I thought, well, that is actually not too bad. So here we are, here to read select passages from my new memoir, Tampa Heat. This passage here really builds off the earlier chapters. The boat ride really mimics the CIA abduction from chapter 1, and we also revisit some of the motifs from the Monte Carlo casino robbery that occurs through most of the 3rd chapter. This is from chapter 9, this passage. We had been ashore for only a few minutes. It was cold and windswept. I could hear the crunch of snow in my steps and felt it on my knees when they forced me to the ground. After a few minutes, one of the guards pulled the bag off my head, and the salmon bisque that I had thrown up on the boat ride in was now smeared all over my face and hair. One by one, the small guards, who I assumed were elves, began pulling the bags off the other guests' heads. And one by one, I began to recognize the faces of the most formidable thieves in the world. There was Julian Concannon, renowned Irish grease man, who had a penchant for high-end automobiles. Next to him was his younger brother Roger, or Lil Raj as we called him. Beside Little Raj was Melanie Laurent, the woman whose vagina almost ruined my life. And lastly was my nemesis, Gideon Slade. Gideon had an exceptionally large head. The bag got caught, and several of the pint-sized elves had to form a small chain of little people to pull it off. When the bag finally did pop off Gideon's head, all the guards tumbled back in a rather comical fashion. One of the elves split his pants trying to get back up. I laughed so goddamned hard I almost threw up more salmon bisque. It was then that I heard the bellowing sound of a horn, and a half-naked fat man began to make his descent down some old wooden stairs built into the icy cliffside. The man was followed by a small procession of little men in candy cane-themed robes. Of course, the fat man was him, Santa Claus. His body was imposing and chapped. All his features seemed bulbous and rosy. He wore a fur loincloth dyed a brilliant red and lined with white trim. He looked stupid in that loincloth. White trim that matched his white hair and ridiculous white beard. He was fatter than ever. He was getting to that type of fat where the person isn't equally fat all over anymore, and so fat that all the rolls were out of symmetry and maybe one leg kind of gets bigger than the other. I guess water retention causes it. I had to admire his confidence in the loincloth garment, though. He looked completely free while wearing it. I recalled I had once worn a Chardonnay-colored blazer to an old early fall luncheon. The choice of wardrobe palette was completely out of line, but the jacket made me feel dangerous and wild. Later, the host made an unclever comparison between me and Colonel Mustard from the game Clue. I didn't know who to be more embarrassed for, myself or for the other guests who clearly couldn't tell the difference between mustard and Chardonnay. That night, I burned the jacket in the fireplace. My longtime tailor, Wesley, had convinced me it was a good idea, so to return the favor, I bedded his wife, Claire, the following Friday. A few days later, she left Wesley for me. But I digress. Anyway, there we were, the 5 of us kneeling in the snow as Santa Claus, ever the fatter, called out, "Oh, do I have a job for you?" One of his peppermint priests stepped forward, holding a shrouded item in his hands. He lifted away the shroud to reveal a dusty Christmas gift that shined a brilliant gold light. It was then that I realized that I was looking at the relic of the first gift. Thank you. This next passage is sort of the culmination of the boat chase from chapter 10, the round-robin fighting tournament from chapters 11 and 12, as well as the battle of wits with the peppermint priest necromancer in chapter 13, as well as identifying the true nature of the first gift relic in chapter 14. I slammed the door behind me. It was then that I realized I had just barricaded myself inside Santa's wrapping paper factory. There, sitting at her design table, was Mrs. Klaus, and girl was looking thick. She had a luscious silver hair and a messy updo that was held in place with a candy cane. She looked surprised to see me. I wasn't sure how much of my antics the fat man had shared with her, so I thought I'd play it dumb for a little while. "So this is where Santa keeps his talent," I said. "I wouldn't call me talented at all. All I do is design the wrapping paper," Mrs. Klaus replied. "Nonsense. The wrapping paper is the best part of the gift," I said. "Sometimes I think it's silly that all I do is sit in here and design stupid paper patterns all day," she said solemnly. "Not at all," I replied. "Lots of housewives have some craft-oriented hobby that they act like is a real job and keeps them busy so they don't realize that they wasted their college degree the moment they agreed to change diapers full-time." Her face looked angry for a second, then relaxed into a look of seduction. "I always feel like no one is telling me what is actually going on around here," she said. "But you, Mr. Guimont, don't seem to care about lying to anyone." We both moved towards each other, meeting in the middle of the room. I began to tell her my entire true story. "I was sent here by the CIA to steal the first gift relic from your husband. When I realized its true power, I was going to go home, but then devised a plan to destroy it during the boat chase. When that didn't work out, I thought maybe I would win it in the fighting tournament and also buy myself some time to try and sleep with my ex-lover, Melanie. After accomplishing that, I decided to blow off the rest of the tournament and just run away, but my absence from the tournament alerted the guards, and now I'm hiding in here," I said while casually undoing the buttons to her dress. "It's been a long time since a man has been this honest with me," she said as her dress fell to the floor. Old girl had it going on. She was a busty MILF porn search personified. I decided to free my erection from the cumbersome corduroys I had chosen for the fighting tournament. "Well, that's one package I don't think I'm going to wrap tonight," she said. Nothing gets old Toby harder than an Alabama walnut than getting the green light on unprotected sex. But considering I had just bedded Melanie in the guard tent, I wasn't sure how hard I could get in the moment, so I decided to buy myself some time. I put my hands on her bare hips. Daddy taught me 3 things, I said. First, he taught me that bear bonds are long-term and not for the squeamish. Second, always register your boat trailer in Georgia to take advantage of the lower luxury tax. And third, thick thighs save lives. As I began to kneel so I could go down on her, she tried to stop me. Oh no, I don't know if you should. I've been sitting in this hot workshop all day and haven't taken a shower since this morning, she said, half protesting. I don't care, I lied as I proceeded to go down on her. When I got down there, I took a big whiff. I don't know why men do this. It's not like we're going to do anything about it if... Fortunately, this woman had a vagina that smelled like sugar cookies. I did the standard hour-and-a-half set that I normally do. Somewhere in that 90 minutes that my face was buried in her wonderfully plump genitals, I forgot to breathe and passed out. This next chapter is a flashback that I think really lays out some character growth. It really explains that I've always been prone to stealing. It's from chapter 16. There I was sitting in my childhood home. It was Christmas Eve, and all the kids were sitting in the living room of our humid Tampa, Florida home. My brother Kenny, my sister Gloria, and myself were all sitting there sweating. The Mofits are sweaters, especially our private areas. Our Uncle Gene used to tell us that the Mofits had sweaty privates because we're sensual people. So there we all are, sticky from the humidity as sweat began to seep through the thin fabric in the crotches of our cheap jammies. The heat was putting my older brother Kenny in one of his moods. He was complaining that the presents under the tree were looking a little underwhelming this year. After a couple of hours of stewing, Kenny pulled me into the garage. He told me to get on my bike, and we rode out together into the muggy Tampa night. When we pulled up to the bingo hall, Kenny told me to strip down to my underoos. There we both stood in our He-Man underpants, glistening with sweat in the moonlight. Yeah. Follow my lead, he said. Kenny tied his jammy top around his face like a mask and went running inside. I did the same and followed. Once inside, Kenny made a beeline for the payout table. He leapt through the air and slid across the table, plowing through the stacks of money. Realizing his plan, I quickly did the same. We both crashed to the ground at the other end. In a fit of laughter, we sprang up and ran out of the building, each of us with over $100 stuck to our little clammy bodies. We hit 4 more bingo halls that night. The following Sunday, the local news ran a story about a local gang of child thieves called the Sticky Boys. Kitty and I both laughed as we watched the report on this little portable TV we spent $800 on. My name is Marcel Guimont, but you all may call me Toby Mofit. Have a good night. Thank you.
Marcel Guimont, everybody.